Last week I was really excited to receive this, my new Spinzall 2.0 Centrifuge from Booker and Dax. So today I want to give you a first look at this newly updated culinary and bar centrifuge. It's actually not that long ago that I made a fairly in-depth video about some of the food and drink techniques that I use a centrifuge for. And that was all done with my original version 1 Spinzall, which I've owned since they were launched and still use and love. So it's actually been a bit more equipment heavy on the channel than I would normally aim for, but I have got some interesting videos about dishes from the menu and some wild food videos that are all in the works and coming up pretty soon. But the reason I still wanted to make this quick video and get it out fairly fast if I can is that these Spinzall version 2 units are now just arriving with people that pre-ordered them like myself, and they are actually in stock and available to order right now as I record this. And in the past I've had a lot of questions about my centrifuge from people asking where they can get one and if they're available, so if you've been holding out and waiting for one, now is your chance. So today I'm going to show you the new version 2 Spinzall. I'll give you an overview of using it and then also go through some of the changes between this and the older version. Then lastly I'll explain why I bought one of these despite already owning one of the originals. If you don't know anything about these already, this is the second benchtop centrifuge unit designed for use in kitchens and bars by Dave Arnold and his Booker and Dax company. I've mentioned Dave Arnold and Booker and Dax on here in the past because, as I say, I love that original centrifuge, and Dave's work has been a big inspiration and a fantastic practical resource. And since then, the products and books that Dave and the Booker and Dax team have made have all been unique and brilliant in my view. So if they're making something new, I'm pretty confident that it's going to be something that I'll be interested in. With that little bit of context and sucking up done, let's look more specifically at the Spinzall 2. Like the original, its primary use is going to be for clarifying liquids, although you can do various different techniques with it, and again you could have a look at my first video about centrifuge techniques if you want to learn more about those. It works by spinning your product at really high speed, and in fact the new version spins even a little faster than the original. And this gives you a way to clarify liquids without using heat or making gels or freeze thawing, which takes up space and time in the kitchen and just isn't practical for every product. Spinning a product in the centrifuge uses centrifugal force to separate solids out from a liquid, leaving you with a beautifully clear finished product. With the Spinzall, this happens within this central rotor assembly. And that has some advantages over larger lab centrifuges, which need careful balancing and can only spin one batch of a product at a time, not to mention their size and expense. So I'll quickly show you the parts and the use of this centrifuge, but if you are using one for the first time, you should go to the Booker and Dax website and properly have a look at their manual and instruction videos to make sure you're doing everything correctly, safely, and you don't damage your machine. So in the main, the centrifuge's design is still pretty much the same as the original. The product that you're spinning can be placed inside the main rotor assembly, and you can set up and spin small batches like this. The rotor contains these small fins which help to balance and distribute the product. Again, I'd suggest having a look at the Booker and Dax website if you want a proper explanation of how this process works, but as we spin our product, the solids are separated out from the liquid, and then that leaves us with our clear liquid to work with. The other option for how to use the Spinzall, and one of my favourite features with it, is the fact that you can use this in a continuous mode, which is extremely practical, certainly for how I work in the kitchen. It lets you use this pump system to gradually pump liquid into the centrifuge while it's spinning. You can adjust the rate of that if you need to, depending on the product you're working with, and then as the product is clarified, it comes out of this chute and is collected on the other side. So this is brilliant if you want to do litres of products at a time, if you want to be able to set this up and just leave it running, and that's certainly really helpful for me and a number of the ways that I use mine. This is one of the things that you just can't do with another type of centrifuge, and really shows how much they understand the workflow and the space limitations of working in small, busy kitchens and bars. On the new version of the centrifuge, this lid where the liquid's pumped in has been slightly improved, and immediately I found that made my life a little bit easier using this version. Not that I ever had a problem with the original one, but it's nice just to see some little tweaks and upgrades that have been done that just make the day-to-day use of this machine just a little better. The whole thing takes up about the same space as a blender, something like my Thermomix, and so it's quite a practical thing to be able to get out and use on the counter and then store out of the way easily. And all the parts that you're using are dishwasher safe, so that's also really handy in the kitchen, of course. So I'll quickly go over a couple of the changes from the original version, and mainly the ones that I felt are most relevant to me. First off, there's the speed. The new units now spin a little faster with a top speed of 4,200 RPM versus the older models being 4,050 RPM. If that stat doesn't mean an awful lot to you, and why would it? Booker and Dax calculate that the new centrifuge clarifies liquids about 10% faster than the older unit. Next up, there's the power for the centrifuge. The new units can now be plugged directly into the mains here in the UK and Europe. So this is not going to be so relevant for my American friends, but with the older model I had to use quite a bulky and slightly awkward transformer in order to use my centrifuge here in England. That wasn't too big of a deal, but it's just a slight pain, and then it's really nice that with these newer units all you need is a plug adapter and it can plug straight into the wall and it's ready to go. It just means there's a little less friction when it comes to using it, and if you've got multiple people working with the same unit, it's also less chance that someone's going to plug it in incorrectly and damage it. Then the timer dials that you had on the old model to start it spinning or the pump working have now been swapped for more straightforward switches. I already much prefer this to the timers, and it just means that if you want to leave this running for longer than the old 30-minute timers, it's a lot easier to do, which is great for things like that continuous mode I talked about. Another notable change is this new key that you use to open the lid of the centrifuge. The older model used an electronic release, so the machine had to be plugged in and switched on in order to actually open the lid. Whereas now you have this manual key that slots into the top and allows you to open the lid whether it's plugged into the mains or not. There's a few other changes as well, but these are the key ones that I've sort of immediately noticed and think are going to make a noticeable difference to the experience of how I use mine. So I'll quickly talk about why I got this despite already owning the original, and it's not too much to do with these upgrades really, although they are nice to have. That change to the power and being able to just plug it straight in and using it is definitely going to make my life a little bit easier, and also having that little bit of extra speed, it clarifying things 10% faster, is certainly nice to have. But the key reason for me to get this unit is just that there's no other centrifuge like this out there, and certainly nothing in this price range or size. And because I love my original version and it's integrated into how I work and some of the recipes for my tasting menu, I hit the point where I felt like I really should have a backup for this too. My older version's been really reliable, but if it ever did break or need a repair, I want to have an option so that I can continue working with this. So in fact, what I think I'll be doing now is semi-retiring my older version, packing it up nice and clean and safe, and then just having it there for if I ever need to use it as a backup, or maybe if I have to process really large batches of things and want to be able to run 2 centrifuges at the same time. Or I've got it to travel with potentially, and just so that I know I have it there safely as a spare so that I can confidently carry on working with my version 2 centrifuge. And that, for me, is worth it, I think. I've had so much great use out of my first one that I'm happy to see this as an investment and some security for my work going forwards. You probably know already if you are someone that might have use for a centrifuge or not, so if you are looking for one, I definitely rate and recommend these. And you can always watch that technique video that I made using my old centrifuge if you want to get a sense of whether this might be something that might be helpful to your work or not, or if you've just recently got one and you're looking for some ways that you might want to use it. And so that's more or less it. To sum up, I'd say they've taken something that was already great and made it a little bit better again. And if you're interested in this sort of stuff, you might be interested in some of the videos that I've made about working with the Rotovac, or some of the other culinary and drinks videos that I've featured here on the channel. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.